Welcome to the Flex Forward Podcast, where grit meets growth. With your host, Nic Espanet, bringing you stories of resilience, reinvention, and the real climb to success.
Welcome, everyone. We're joined today by Jason Surat. I'm excited to talk with him just about what he's doing in the world. Jason's involved in real estate and just on the commercial side. So I'm going to let him give a little more detail about what he's doing. But I'm excited to visit with him. We had a little talk beforehand. Sounds like he's got some cool stuff going on. But Jason, if you can just give us a overview of what you have on your plate right now and just kind of your background and how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Nick. Pleasure to be on today. And so just sort of a quick 30-second clip of where I'm at right now. Involved in multifamily real estate, mostly syndications at the moment, and sort of just kind of growing through that, working my way up to being, my own GP on some deals and things of that nature, and hopefully owning my own units, outright myself. So
that's awesome.
Kind of where I'm at right now.
Awesome. So how did you make your way into this space? What were you doing before you got into the multifamily, or you just do this right your first job?
No, good question. So it's been a long journey. I think, similar to others, I didn't start out doing this. For me, I started out in the corporate world after I played a year of some professional baseball, landed at a car dealership just because I was trying to figure things out. My friend was the manager there. So, didn't really tout myself as a car salesman. And then what happened there is he actually got something to click for me, in the sense that he made me realize that anytime I talked to somebody, or obviously I was much younger back then, so the way he related it for me was that, what do you do when you try to date girls and stuff like that? Essentially, I was selling myself. So it made me kind of realize, like, I just got to be myself. And really, that's what kind of got my sales career off the ground. From there, I went into the corporate world where I spent 10 years. And so probably towards the back half of that 10 years, started looking around, realizing, like, I don't want this to be my last stop, and I don't want this to be where I retire from. And it rekindled some old flames that I had being an entrepreneur before I got into baseball. And so what made me realize was, like, oh yeah, I really wanted to get back into entrepreneurship. I wanted to get back into the real estate world. And so that really is what started my journey on the real estate journey. And of course, from there, it started like a lot of people. I started with fix and flips. I was in Southern California at the time, so very different market. Well, markets are different,
Sure,
depending on where you live. So, so I started out with fix and flips and realized I was really chasing cash flow because I'd been in the corporate world for so long. I was used to, 2-week paycheck. So I was like, okay,
regular, yeah.
Started learning about cash flow from there, and then started realizing it's either single family or multifamily. But again, Southern California is a big market to play in, a lot of institutional money. And so I didn't have the network at that time. Plus, I was just getting into it. And then so from there, I fell into short-term rentals because it was a lower barrier to entry.
Sure.
Started employing the arbitrage model just because it made us more agile in terms of ordinances and things like that. And that was the play from there. It was building a short-term rental business that would allow me to open the doors to multifamily. And it's very similar in terms of doors and things of that. Obviously,
Sure.
There's a lot of correlation to hotels and lodging and stuff like that when it comes to revenue. But for me, it was just a logical next step. And that was sort of the goal for me, was start with short-term rentals, build that big enough to level myself up into multifamily, and then go from there.
Awesome. What a great story. So, there's a lot of competition in that real estate space and world. Is there something you can think of that sets you apart? Maybe something that comes easier for you, or something maybe you had to work hard to get to that, but what is something you feel sets you apart from some of the other operators out there?
Great question. In terms of setting me apart, I would say that I was always somebody who monitored my budget. For example, I'm the kind of guy who's had my budget on Excel spreadsheet, long before, it was a thing, I guess.
Sure.
And so getting into the underwriting piece, which regardless if you're the guy who raises money, the guy who's doing, on-site due diligence, things like that. If you're going to be in this world, you got to know a little bit about everything, enough to be dangerous at least. And so
Sure.
the underwriting part, although I'm not completely in love with crunching all those numbers and stuff like that, it was something that came a little bit easier to me. Also, in the sense of understanding and analyzing risk because of where I spent my 10 years in corporate. I was in the automotive world for a private bank. And so we bought cars from dealerships. And so analyzing risk and everything like that was kind of part of the job. So those things I would say would kind of gave me a little bit of a leg up, but make no mistake, it was still and is still completely hard when underwriting deals because as underwriting, let's say a 15 or 20 unit is different than underwriting, let's say a 200 unit. And to be honest with you, every deal has its own little nuances that force you to learn something new when you're underwriting.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. I'm in the same space, so it's just knowing as you get bigger, you may specialize in a certain area because that's where that's what you're good at. But I still
Right.
think you need to understand all the other aspects, especially the underwriting part. Even if you're the one that's helping with capital raise or the construction side, if you're going to get involved with that deal, you need to at least have a moderate understanding of the underwriting. So you make sure that even if like and trust who you're partnered with, you want to look over and when we do deals, we always have at least three people review the underwriting because a couple things. One, did we have a assumption that may not be accurate? Two, sometimes you get focused like, oh, I like this deal, like maybe I can squeeze here. It's good to get somebody that's kind of not been in the weeds on it for so long to take a look at it, and then just having that other set of eyes. 'Cause I would rather find out then, not when we've got earnest money down or when we have investors' money in place. I want to be, sometimes like, oh, I really like this deal. I don't want to, but I'm like, hey, this is why we have a team. I want somebody else to look at it and try to poke holes. It's not personal. I
Right.
want people poking holes in my underwriting so I can defend them. That way, when I'm ready to defend them when we're ready to raise money, and we're much less likely to run into issues down the line. If we have conservative points built into our underwriting.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. You remind me of a time, when I was kind of getting into the market and learning a lot of the stuff that I was understanding, at least I was being taught, the foundational stuff when it came to fix and flips was always have three exit strategies, right?
Oh, nice.
And I see that a lot in the short-term rental world. I've been doing that for the last 5 years. I've got a fairly successful portfolio in that as well. But I see people buying these properties just based on STR revenue. And it's like, what do you do when that ordinance changes or, whatever the case may be? And it's just, again, that probably is where, going back to what the question is, that probably where it comes a little bit easier to me because I always looked at risk, or it's kind of programmed into me from that 10 years in the corporate job. I would never get into something personally that I only had one out.
That's a great thought. We looked at a 6 unit here in the town I live in, but we knew the city was talking about really buckling down on short-term rental stuff, and it worked great if you were doing short-term rental because near the university could have been, but if you went in, I'm like, all right, let's now assume the city changes the rules.
Right.
6 months or a year from now, we have to only go to long-term renters. And I mean, we would have been upside down. We would have not been able to make the debt payment even. So it's like, yeah, this is beautiful if the city doesn't change it. Even that's what's scary sometimes, I think, with some of the short-term rental stuff now is you
Yeah.
could get into something now and it may be a year or 2 years that something changes within the city or state that can, or even say if you're using Airbnb, I feel like my wife has done some short-term rental stuff that
Mhm.
Airbnb changed some of their way they handle stuff. And, and then all of a sudden it's less favorable to you as the owner or the operator. So you need to do you have other options at that point to pivot within that space? So great. That's great that you've got that in the front of your mind. So Awesome. So
Yeah.
if someone listening right now wants to get better at something, do you have any other podcasts, any books or anything that you read that's helped you kind of level up or move up a level, or any tips that you can give to them, share with them?
Yeah, so for me, I really look at it from a standpoint of what skill set do I need to learn in terms of becoming or having the tools that I need to operate in then whatever particular space I'm trying to get into. And that kind of comes from, my baseball days when I was playing professionally, right? So,
Yeah,
um, eh, and so for me, underwriting's a big one. Capital raising is a big one. I look at those two things as we talked about earlier. I want to know enough about underwriting to be dangerous, also to double check, any partner's work or something like that
sure.
to give it a once over. And like you mentioned, maybe they're a little bit biased about the deal for whatever reason might be. And so that's a big thing. So underwriting for me, I've looked at, I believe it was Michael Blanc. It's been a little while, so he's got a nice little affordable program that you can purchase and go through some underwriting, practice, if you will. And then, of course, as you're networking and talking to people and out doing business, don't be scared to ask people what do they do or how do they underwrite or what approaches do they take and stuff like that, because you might pick up some gold nuggets along the way. And
For
then the other
sure.
one is capital raising. So capital raising for me, I always look at it regardless of the business or the space you in. I think if you can bring money to a deal, um, somebody's gonna, you're always gonna be have the
There's a
ability to
need.
get involved, right?
Sure, that and that's one of the more challenging aspects is the capital raising. So and make sure when you're doing that, you're going about it by following the SEC guidelines. But if you can come in and help with a capital raise and then meet the SEC guidelines on that partnership is always valuable. And you talked about a mentor, using Michael Blank. There's other mentorship programs. People that are wanting to get in the multifamily, I think, or fix and flips, whatever you're doing. I think having a mentor is so helpful. Can you do it by just reading books? I think it's very, yes, you can do it, but I think it's slower. But getting into a mentorship program, that's how I went through and learned. I went from being in healthcare to my first deal was a 100 unit property. So
Mhm.
by utilizing a mentorship program, so I encourage everyone to look into those. Yeah, they can be a little bit pricey. I mean, but when you look at a 4 year college, what you pay to get 4 years, and you maybe use, maybe don't, you're not getting, but most of these mentorship programs are a fraction of what a 4 year degree would cost you if you're going through that area. So
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Mentorship is important. If you're somebody the way I look at it is, I like if I'm not completely sold or 100% invested into going forward in whatever space it is that I'm looking at. So let's take, maybe underwriting or just multifamily in general.
mhm,
Start with the podcast, the books and stuff like that, and then figure out if you have enough of a desire to push through or willing to invest in yourself on that side. And then once you're ready, yes, level up, get yourself a mentorship. And there's different levels of mentorships that you
sure.
can get. And then, from there, you just got to make a decision for yourself which one is going to get you to where you're trying to go.
No, for sure. And one thing I like to share with people is, it's not rocket science, but it's persistence. It's being resilient, persistence. And if it was super easy, everybody would be doing it. You wouldn't make any money. To make money at something, you usually got to do something that's a little more challenging that the other 95, 98% of the population doesn't want to go through that process and learn. So, when I've talked to people like, oh, what can you guarantee me I can get it done? I'm like, no, I mean, I can tell you if you're persistent and you keep going, you're likely going to do it. But if you want, if you do me to tell you if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to have success. And if it was that easy, there would be a big line of people doing it. And then it's the supply and demand. Then you would not make money doing it because there'd be so many people.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. It's definitely something that, you said being resilient and stuff like that. And I also like to use the word resourceful because you gotta really sometimes just look at what parameters or things that you have available to you. and where you're at in your current situation in life, and then get resourceful around that, find out where you want to go in that space. And then that's, what I mentioned earlier, start to level up by getting that mentorship.
Yeah. Yep. And that mentorship is another resource. You're just finding other, you may not have the resource on your shelf or in your current circle, but you can go out and find a resource of somebody that's already had success in that avenue. So great stuff. So it sounds like you're doing well, and everything that's going on right now, and as you are maturing, are you looking at doing anything to create, this is part of multifamily real estate, but creating passive income to enhance or even replace some of you don't have active income, but are you looking at any other avenues other than multifamily, or even just investing in other multifamily, other GP deals?
Yeah. So essentially, when I was at the corporate world for 10 years, they had a great ESOP program and things of that nature. So when I left there, I left there with a nice little egg nest. I don't really call it a nest egg because I was far from nesting, if you will.
Yeah.
but I left there with some money in the ESOP, essentially rolled that over to a solo K 401k. So,
okay.
Talking about SEC guidelines and everything you mentioned earlier, right? So with that stuff, you can't benefit from investing in yourself.
Yeah, you can't put in your own.
Yeah, unless you're withdrawing. Obviously, there's different ways to be following the guidelines. But yeah, so with that money, I essentially look at creating opportunities where I can invest as an LP in other deals, because essentially I'm not, going to touch that money until I'm ready to.
Sure, and you want to keep it. I mean, you have to keep it at arm's length. That was my first two LP deals were with self-directed IRA money that I'd had from prior employment.
Yeah, and it's a great way to get started. It's actually something I like to talk about on LinkedIn, because I think a lot of people's first hurdle or first pushback is, oh, I don't have the money, or, oh, I'm not ready yet. And it's like, well, first off, we all understand, those of us who have gotten this far understand we're never ready, right? Especially,
sure.
I mean, just look at becoming a parent, right? So we're never ready. And then, yes, you personally may not have the money, but again, it goes back to the resourcefulness. And then take a look again at within your own arsenal. Do you have the money? You just don't actually realize it. And so it's a great way for people to get started is, bunching up a bunch of old 401k stuff that people didn't even realize that they left behind from jumping over from multiple jobs,
different jobs. Yeah.
Because
then you're learning from the people. I mean, you're not there in the day-to-day operations, but you can learn how they communicate and things like that and grow quite a bit. So as we're wrapping up, you have any exciting plans or initiatives in the works for the next 6 to 12 months?
Right now, we also just put a deal. We'll finalize and closed on it. Well, I guess it's been about 6-7 months now.
Okay, awesome.
Also 100 units in Abilene, Texas. And so we're just kind of working on operations and stuff. So for me, it's just getting in the weeds of the underwriting, working on some capital raising. And then I'm actually going to look to do maybe a small deal for just me by myself. It's going to be a little bit smaller, probably something in, I would say, the 15 to maybe 50 unit market, tertiary, something like a C class that I could, really bring some B class or bring it to a B class using some value add plays. So that's kind of on my plate right now. It's I'm trying to see if it's actually going to be something that I can make happen here in the next probably 8 to 12 months.
Nice. Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. So, Jason, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your insights and tips with us. If people would like to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. If anybody wants to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, my full name, Jason Surat. You'll see a picture of me. I had hair back then.
Looking sharp. He's got a suit and a nice tie on.
I just laugh because, after you have kids, especially twins, all that personal time where you can spend going out and maybe getting a suit or even getting a haircut, those things change. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can send me an email at jsurat@4pillarsolutions.com. And that's the number 4, pillar spelled out correctly, solutionsplural.com.
Awesome. Great stuff, Jason. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us on the Flex Forward podcast today. And I look forward to getting this out and sharing it with all of our listeners.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Flex Forward podcast. If you've got grit, growth, and a great story, visit flexforwardpodcast.com/guest to apply and join us on the show.